there's one factor now that's being cited that could slow down growth, build, in particular, which is the reenacted budget. How strong is the impact of that on our projections for the year?
Well, definitely it has its impact. The budget, the enacted budget specifically states where to spend. And if the plan, the bill plan has new items for this year, they cannot be funded. And therefore, that will drag the implementation of the bill. So it's important. It's actually unfortunate that the political disruption is also affecting the fiscal effectiveness of our government. That's terrible, and I hope that they are able to agree on what to do with the budget. But of course, definitely, I don't agree that just to have a new budget enacted, we will forego scrutiny of the budget items. We need to do that, but I was hoping that they had done that much earlier.
Yeah.
You know, before the recess. You know,
well, we invited you as economists, but we'll invite you, as I've done before with Nonoy, I'll invite you to be a political analyst as well. No, where are you proceeding from? I mean, on what premise are you proceeding from with regards to the budget? Are we going to have a reenacted budget or something better?
I think it's good that they should have you know, what's this yung paralysis in the budget, you know. Look at the interest rate, okay? The 10-year government bond, 4.8% 2016, 5.1% in 2017, about 7.2% 2018. Pag ganun, bakit utang ng utang ang gobyerno? There's too much overspending and therefore there's too much borrowing. Government should learn to control its spending, and I think that that paralysis in the budget is a good thing. Government expenditure should flatline. It should not stop. It should stop rising too much while the revenue should be. 477 billion pesos borrowing in just 1 year is too much. And previous to that, 350. In the previous administration, hanggang 150 billion, 160 billion lang ang utang per year. So I think that's important. That if you look at the again ASEAN 6. The 10-year government bond, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, all of them are either flatlining or declining. Only the Philippines has a rising 10-year government bond. Why? There's too much fiscal responsibility here compared to our neighbors. I'm not even talking about China, about Korea, Japan, or Hong Kong. I'm just talking about our neighbors in the ASEAN. We are the odd man out. The fiscal responsibility here is much higher compared to the fiscal responsibility of our neighbors.
My
You
view.
agree? Fiscal responsibility.
Well, don't put it that way. I am more. I will be in a position where I think financing should come from the private sector. It should be debt and equity. It should be a combination of both, depending on the cost of money, which one is cheaper, which one is more efficiently used. That's where I will go. On the, from the government point of view, I think they should consider both taxation and borrowing. But it has to be a combination. It should be a healthy combination. If the borrowing is put in the right place, where the returns are demonstrably okay, that will benefit the economy, I think I will go along with borrowing and not much taxation. I can spread out. So, for example, if the project that the government wants to fund will last for 10, 20 years, I don't think you can finance it in just 1 year. I think you'll have to finance it over 10 years or even 12, 15 years. I think that's the horizon that I am looking at. You have to match the kind of project, the lifespan of the project, with the source of financing. I cannot overburden the current taxpayers with assuming that the projects that they are sponsoring are really needed. But if they are not, I agree with you.
That's not how government. They're only thinking until 3 years. Utang lang utang. Who will pay? The next administration. Well, you know, that's why I think that it is important na yung. I mean, you know, if I restrain, if I restrain, baka may growth will expense. Utang lang ng utang, and then Even kaya nga ang laki ng kwan talaga eh, from 4.8 to 7.2%, almost 3% increase in just 2 years in interest rate. That is
Okay.
already an indicator that, lenders say, oops, red flag itong Pilipinas. Malamang mahirapan magbayad ito. That's why ngayon pa lang hatawin natin ang interest rate. Kaya ikaw gobyerno, dapat is an indicator for you. Hinahinay na tayo sa borrowings.
I look at government in two respects. One is the government side where the politicians rule, and the other side where the technocrats should rule. In other words, the politicians, their lifespan is 3 years or 6 years, but the technocrats' point of view should be at the long-term benefit of the project for the people. That is why I think it's important. I think where Nono is coming from is that what he is saying are only political considerations. And he's right. I think it's irresponsible for the government to continue borrowing without the perspective of who's going to pay and how much is it going to cost us. But I think we need to go beyond the political, but we have to be realistic. The reality is that politicians rule government. Unfortunately, the technocrats are at the whims of the politicians. And I think that should be the advocacy of people who want to see reforms in government, strengthen the bureaucracy, make the bureaucracy more professional, more accountable, and more qualified to do
Is that
the work.
essentially what's happening now with the budget process in Congress?
You want to take a break?
Okay, with that, we'll just pause for. We were talking about the budget, and from ordinary people's perspective, this is really more about the political issue, more driven by a battle over individual allocations, especially with the approaching elections. What's your take on that?
Yeah, well, that perception is unfortunate because the budget process involves a lot more than that. When a government agency prepares its budget, it is prepared based on assumptions on how they will be able to deliver on the services that the people require and how much they cost, the effective delivery, how efficiently they will be delivered, and they submit the budget to the national government. From the national government, they also undergo another process of scrutiny, and the DBM comes up with a proposed budget based on their take on what is reasonable and what is not reasonable, what is doable and what is not doable. And in that sense, I believe in the cash budget that was originally proposed, because I don't think government agencies should be in possession of cash that will not be utilized at the end of the year, and then be pressured to spend because utilization rate becomes the metric of your performance. That's terrible. So in that respect, I believe in a cash budget practice. However, I don't believe that government budget should be slashed and should be cut to the detriment of the services that they should be able to provide. I think the middle ground there is that if a government agency project, say for example, DSWD, DSWD has this 4 Ps. Right now, the treatment for 4 Ps is a project. It's an intervention. And annually, they require allocation. And if you look at the 4 Ps mandate, the vision of 4 Ps, it's supposed to elevate the status of the recipients from very, very poor to somebody who would be able to participate in the economic activities of the country. So how does the budget come in? You cannot cut 4 Ps because there is no time span. They're not saying that after 15 years we will cut. No, they're saying that after this term, if they graduated, we will include others, or we will expand the budget. So what does that mean? The budget horizon should be based or should match the horizon of the goals of that project. Unfortunately, the goals of the budget of the project cannot be realistically projected, reflected in an annual budget. You only reflect what can annually be
Spent.
achieved and what can actually be utilized. And therefore, you should have a budget for that year that reflects what you are able to utilize. So in that respect, I am okay with that. But to cut the budget because last year they were not able to utilize that, I think that is not appropriate. You prepare a budget based on what you can realistically do. If you cannot realistically do, what is required?
Okay.
To cut it now is just saying that no more. You will no longer deliver those
Okay,
services.
but in terms of targets, which we're still talking about, and in terms of what's achievable, a reenacted budget would, from the very start, signal what?
That will signal a regression, that will retrogression, that will reflect that the project is being stalled.
No, yung